Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world. In 30 answers, discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and I'm sitting at the top of Diamond Mountain with assistant winemaker Kathleen Ward from Theorem Vineyards. Welcome, Kathleen, and tell us about Theorem.
Hi, Allison. Thanks for having me. So Theorem Vineyards, Keisha and Jason actually came out to the property in 2012 and fell in love with it. There was a feeling about it. They knew they wanted to be here. So they purchased the property in 2012. It was in a bit of disarray and started kind of peeling back the layers and learning about the history of the property and started making wine. 2012 was the first vintage of our old vine Cabernet, and that was planted in 85. And then they slowly started fixing the house and the schoolhouse, and it just enveloped into this incredible property. And they built the winery they started in 2017, and we crushed here first vintage in 2018.
Exciting. So this property has a history.
Yes.
Tell me a little about that.
So the history, it was in the 1880s, Dr. Cole from San Francisco brought his family out here. They built this home that we're in right now, built the home, and somehow, I'm guessing they built the schoolhouse as well. And a lot of, there were 10 students who attended the school. And can you picture this place in the 1880s? There must have been just woods and rugged terrain. We're in the mountains here.
Yeah, but now it has vineyards. So how many acres of vineyards do you have? And is it just exclusively this property?
So we have 2 vineyards. We have Diamond Mountain Estate here, which is mostly Cabernet and 1 acre of Merlot. Total right now, we have just under 20 acres planted. So about 19 acres of Cabernet and 1 acre of Merlot.
And the total acreage of this property?
60 acres. So total 60 acres, but 20 planted, 20 cleared for home site and just winery, and then 20 is in the woods still. Ooh. So we also have a Moon Mountain property. And so Moon Mountain, if you're not familiar, there's Mount Veeder and the AVA, which is the Napa side. And then Moon Mountain, you drive over and you're in Sonoma. So that's where we have our Chardonnay, our Sauvignon Blanc, little Syrah, and Cabernet as well. So.
And how many acres there?
So that is 15 acres planted. We're doing a little bit of replant right now. We're going to have a little Grenache and Mourvedre, making a GSM. So exciting things happening for that property as well.
Very cool. And your total case production?
Total case production is around 2,000 to 2,300 cases.
And where is your wine available? Is it just direct to consumer, or are you in any markets?
So right now we are... I would say 99% DTC. We have a couple restaurants here in the Valley that carry our wine. Press is one who's amazing, and then Solage as well. And so a couple restaurants here and there, but right now it's all sold here. You got to come to Napa to get our wines.
Fantastic. So, Kathleen, what is your first memory relevant to wine?
Oh, well, Okay, so this is kind of a funny story. So my sister and I joke about this a lot because when I was in high school, I wanted to be top of my class and run track, and I was so focused on that. And my sister, a couple years older than me, I remember her saying, "Hey, do you want to try some wine?" And I was like, "I'll never drink wine, ever." And
that's your first memory of wine?
Yeah, my parents drank wine, but it was nothing special. But I think that's one that keeps coming back, and we laugh about it. And she's like, look at you 15 years later, and now you're a winemaker. What is going on here?
So now that you're a winemaker, is there a particular wine, one of those aha moments? It doesn't have to be, I'm sure there are more than one, but maybe the first wine that sort of awoken this sort of sense of wonder that led you on a path, or maybe something that led you towards a variety you're working with, or just something maybe you tasted last week that just changed your mind on something?
I think one that kind of sticks out to me was, so Riesling is one of my favorite varietals. And I worked with one of my mentors, the late Denis Malbec. I remember he invited me over to have dinner with his wife, him and his wife. And it was kind of the first blind tasting that I'd really had. And he had the bottle all wrapped up, and he said, what is this? And I was so new into the wine industry, and I was thinking, well, it's got this like rubber kind of petrol note. And I was kind of nervous, and I didn't know what to say. And he's like, well, what varietal? And we talked it through, and it was Riesling. And I remember saying that, and he was like, you're right, just trust your instincts and trust your nose and your palate. And so,
do you remember what Riesling it was?
It was a Trimbach.
Ah.
Yeah.
So, among, there are a lot of different wines. You said you love Riesling, you're making Cabernet. If we came into your home and went into your wine cellar or your wine closet or under your bed or wherever you keep your wine, what would we find in there? Would we find a lot of wines from around the world, a lot of your wines, neighbors?
I would say it's a lot of my wines, but also, so I started a couple years ago kind of collecting Napa Valley Cabernets from the 2011 vintage. And I think, like, for me, I know it wasn't the greatest growing conditions, but watching them kind of age has those slightly greener notes. They're morphing and they're changing in the bottle. And so I started about 5 years ago kind of getting some of the, I really do like the mountain kind of fruit, mountain vineyards. So I have a lot of 2011s that I've tucked away and here and there kind of sample and be like, okay, I see where this is going.
And anything else?
And also just wines from friends. I think I have friends that are winemakers, and we love to kind of trade wine. Mm-hmm. And so that, and of course, Riesling.
Is there anything you opened recently that drank really well?
I guess the one wine that sticks out was I opened in December with a friend for her 30th birthday, and it was the 1990 Margaux, Chateau Margaux. Oh. Yeah, it was her birthday present for herself, and that was incredible.
Yeah, that's not just I happened to open that last night and it drank well.
No, it was. That was a night we celebrated, and I think we all just sat around the table and kept talking about it, kept going back, and it kept changing and throughout the evening, and that was incredible.
So do you think there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
No. No, I think it's, there's beauty in every one of them, and blends and everything like that. So I don't think there's a perfect one.
And how do you look at wine critics and scores? What's your opinion on that?
I appreciate them. I think, sometimes reading through those notes and reading their tasting notes are incredible. But I do, and I think they've brought awareness to certain brands and labels and small producers. But I also believe you should drink what you like. So if someone's opinion of a great wine might not be your palate, so drink what you love, and learn to love. Learn to always taste other wines, but drink what you like and have your own opinion.
So when you drink what you like, tell me this: red, white, or rosé?
Oh, geez. I would have to say I drink more white than red, but I love them all.
Fair enough. Still or sparkling?
start with still, have a glass or two, and then start with sparkling and then go to still.
And when it comes to sparkling, is it champagne or domestic or another country?
No, it's everything.
Everything.
Yeah. Try it all.
You're an equal opportunist. And so, I just had the pleasure to have lunch with you and do a food and wine pairing with the Theorem wines. And it was wonderful how the wines worked with the food so beautifully. And I'm wondering, I know you're not the chef that cooked the meal, but how do you approach food and wine pairings? Do you think that there are rules to follow? Do you think there are certain things that you're looking for in either the food or in the wine? And what advice would you give someone who's wondering how to do it?
Well, I have to say Josh Mitchell's the best at wine pairings.
And he's your in-house chef here at the winery.
So he is the culinary expert here and prepares all the meals. But following the rules, I wouldn't say I always do. I don't follow the rules. I think there's definitely foods that if you're looking at acidity and fat or tannin and fat, it's you can pair those very well, but break the rules too. It kind of makes you learn a little bit about the wine, and I love having the rounded glasses in front of me and trying those wines with different things throughout the night. So yeah.
So for somebody who hasn't had the pleasure to taste Theorem wines yet, what do you think they're missing out on?
I would say the ethos behind Theorem and our team is love of the land, respect for the land, and love of wine, and it's an experience and attention to detail. And I think that when you take a sip of the wine, I feel like I taste all of that in each wine. So if you haven't, I think you got to come here. You got to try it. You can taste all of that.
It's a beautiful sentiment. So if space aliens were to land on their property right now and you were to welcome them with a glass of your wine, which of the wines would you want to open first? Or maybe the only wine you'd want to open. I don't know.
It would have to be first. They've got to have the Sauvignon Blanc. You got to step off your alien, spaceship and get greeted with a glass of Sauvignon Blanc. We can go from there.
Well, that's what I got welcomed with. So maybe I'm a space alien. But it did welcome me for more, and it made me want to try more. So, I'm looking out right now at your vineyards, and you talked a little bit about what you have planted here and how long they've been planted, and you spend time in the vineyards. When you walk through, what have you noticed in the time you're here and in the time you've been in the valley making wine for other wineries? How much variation do you see from vintage to vintage, and how much similarity do you find?
Every vintage is very different. When you look at your chemistry, your pH is different, tannins are different, but that's the beauty of it. I think vintage variation is what, if everything tasted the same, it would be boring. Mm-hmm. So it keeps you coming back for more. In general, learning more about this vineyard, you can definitely pick out. I blind taste myself, by the way, on all the wines when I'm here, and in barrel. Mm-hmm. And I think you're picking up the different, what each clone has to offer, mm-hmm. and that is always very similar throughout the vintage. And so when I blind taste myself, I'm like, I know this is Hawk's Prayer, I know this is Voir d'Ire, and I know this is Moon Mountain, and so there are similarities, but I think vintage differences that's part of winemaking, and that's what I love. Mm-hmm.
Are there any signs you look for that are going to tell you what a vintage will give you?
I think that, of course, we all want great weather, but when it comes down to it, I think we have to be humbled by Mother Nature and know that we can't really control the weather and things like that. And so you can do your crop estimates and walk up and down the rows and say, well, this is going to be a big vintage or a small one. And berry size kind of tells you different things about tannins. But in general, you're kind of just, we're farming, and you're at kind of the mercy of nature, but you have to trust that it'll turn into something amazing in the end. That's what our job is. So taking that whole vintage and that little time capsule and creating amazing wines.
And so I know you're a really small team here, and you're the assistant winemaker, but really doing all the work. Have you established any rituals that you like to do at the start of harvest, or something that your small team does?
I always start waking up earlier when harvest is approaching, and I like to get out in the vineyard first thing in the morning when the sun's coming up, and walk through and taste the fruit. So that's the build up to harvest, and then it's just cleaning everything. It's got to be spotless. So I guess that's the ritual of getting ready for harvest.
Cleaning.
Oh yeah, glamorous stuff.
So they say that many winemakers will walk in their cellars and speak to their wines, and we were laughing a little earlier that each of these wines is your baby. So I'm wondering, when you walk through the vines, do you talk to them? And if so, what do you say to them? Or do you just wait till they're in barrel and then you talk to them?
I would, honestly, I do go through I don't really talk to them, but I straighten them out. And I'm like, oh, this cluster's here. Let me untangle it from here. And I love kind of walking in the vineyard and looking at each of all the vines are like a little trial too. You're like, oh, here. And then when it's in tank and fermenting, I'm always so excited to come in the morning and see it and smell it and see how the bricks have moved and how healthy the fermentation is. And in barrel, I open it and I listen when it's going through ML and smell it. So in a weird way, I do.
You talk. You listen, you talk.
Do it.
So when you were a little girl, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I was going to be a large animal vet. And I think growing up with horses and cows in Texas, that kind of shaped, I was thinking, that's it, I'm gonna be a vet. My parents thought, yay, we're gonna have someone to take care of them and give them all their shots. And that changed my senior year at A&M, but now my parents are like, send more wine. So it all worked out.
So you got kind of the bug when you were about to finish college?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Changed the path of my career, but love it, and so happy I did.
So you came out here to California from Texas, and you've been working in wine for a couple of years now, maybe more than a decade.
Yeah, coming up. Oh my goodness, coming up on 10 harvests. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 10 harvests. So when you're not working, how do you like to spend your free time?
I love hiking. I think there's so many great trails, and you can get up in the mountains. So hiking, and I do pack like a picnic and some wine in there.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And also I love baking as well, and just kind of being at home.
Huh. And if you were planning a romantic evening for yourself and someone else, I don't know, but what sort of wines would make for a romantic evening for you? And maybe we could tell a suitor out there.
Yeah. Got to start with a glass of champagne or bubbles, and then probably a dry Riesling, and then you've got to cook, because you got to have wine as you're cooking. And then kind of pair a wine for whatever you're making.
Yeah, like it. So you're from Texas, so I gotta ask, are you a fan of any sports teams? Do you have a real loyalty?
I don't.
You don't?
I know.
Not even your college team?
Well, when I was at A&M, they were terrible. So no, I'm just kidding. No, I don't really follow sports, but
hey,
I'll watch the Olympics.
And any favorite musicians or books you've read of late in the arts?
So music music, I'm a little all over the place. I will listen to anything. I'm very much a mood. If I'm in a mood, I've got to pair the music with that. So you will hear anything around here. And sometimes I'm in the vineyard with my phone going, and there's a very diverse kind of.
Oh, so you play music for your vines.
Yeah. Sometimes if I'm in a rush to sample everything, I've got some maybe techno going. I'm like, okay, hurry.
To set the mood so that they know.
Yeah, hurry, it's harvest, go.
So when you look back at advice that had been given to you over the years, is there a particular piece of advice that you carry with you that you like to apply to your life or to your work?
That's fun. I think it's a combination of just hard work hard, and that was taught to me by my parents, my grandparents, but also enjoy life and have some freedom and relax and don't just don't let life pass you by. Like have some fun too.
Mm-hmm. And if you could give our listeners a piece of advice, what would you share with them?
With regards to wine?
Sure.
Don't overthink it. I think that is, I think that's something that I always thought, oh, God, wine's so complicated, and just enjoy it and don't overthink things.
Good advice. So, you said you're on your 10th harvest. You're pretty young when it comes to being in the wine world. You've got a lot of harvest left in you, a few decades at least. And I'm wondering so far, because it's still so early to say this, but when you look back at your career so far, what would you say is one of your proudest achievements to date? Of course, you are running this beautiful winery, and
I am so proud to be here. I think it would be the initial move from graduating to moving out here, and it was.
Tell me a little.
I didn't know anyone. I didn't know where I was living. It was kind of. I packed up the car with my dog, and my younger brother helped me drive out here, and so it was scary, and I thought I think that initial making the decision and doing it, I'm proud of it. I've never looked back. And yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, I mean, clearly because it set you on a path and you found your place. So you should be very proud. And
I'm so proud and I love, working at Theorem, and it's incredible, and the views, and just so honored to add to that, with Jason and Keisha and Thomas as well, just trusting me as I was in my late 20s. And
just for our listeners, Thomas is the winemaker.
Yeah, Thomas Brown. And so they trusted me, and I'm so happy for that.
So complete this sentence for me. A table without wine is like?
Oh my goodness. I would never want to be there. What? Thinking a dinner without wine, the conversation would be terrible. I don't know. I don't want to think about that.
Okay, so now we're going to imagine a perfect table where there's food and wine on the table.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, calmer now, right? Okay. So imagine a scenario. We're sitting at a table. We have your wine on the table. We're eating food, and there's a seat at the table. From any walk of life, living or deceased, who would you want to be at that table with you drinking Theorem? Who would you love to see with a glass of Theorem?
I would have to say Anthony Bourdain. And I think that would be for the food and wine experience. I think that would be pretty incredible. And just to share Theorem with him and go through the dishes and probably meet the chef back there. It would be an experience.
I love that. I love that. So you've told me a little bit about the wine you like to drink, and I'm going to make a few guesses. All right, they're in my head. I'm not going to share.
Okay.
Don't want to taint you. No. You're going to a deserted island or to outer space, but you can take 3 wines with you. What 3 wines would they be?
Oh. Okay. If I was stranded on an island, it would be champagne for when I'm rescued. So I can celebrate, I guess. Riesling, a dry Riesling for when I'm spearfishing or something to catch my food. Oh. And what if I said bourbon to get through the first night? Terrified. I don't know. If a steak dropped down,
if I
had a steak with me and it was to cook it the first night, I would have to say 2013 Voir dire from Theorem. That is still one of my hands down favorite wines.
Okay. Well, so we've talked about the wines you love. I've tasted through some of the Theorem wines. Hopefully people listening will one day taste them. And also you talked about playing music when you're in the vineyards and in the cellar. So now we'll play our little game where we pair music with wine. As you've talked about, wine conjures up an emotion, and music does too. So based on some of the wines that you produce, I'd love you to pair it with a song, a genre, an artist. You can be as general, as specific as you want. But that Sauvignon Blanc that you welcome people with.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm thinking the Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, think
Don't
out loud.
Judge me for this song.
No, but think out loud. Tell us about the wine as so that we can judge you with your pairing.
Yeah. So I want to be on a beach or by a pool or on vacation with the Sauvignon Blanc. So I always think...
Yeah, it's very refreshing and crisp, but not over the top.
Yeah. And you can just sip it by itself or you can pair it with something. And so I'm thinking if I'm at the beach, I would want like an acoustic guitar or something, off in the distance and listening to the ocean. I think that would be relaxing, and I would just be sipping a cold glass of Sauvignon Blanc.
And then your Chardonnay, and give a description of that Chardonnay to give context.
So the Chardonnay, what I love about it is it's not your typical Chardonnay.
No.
We block malolactic fermentation, and so it leaves it more crisp. It's not your kind of buttery style. It's not a heavier style. Mm-hmm. We also, it's a little bit of oak, or it's 60% oak, a little bit of new oak, and then 40% stainless steel. And so it's still a very light, it's got some body to it and some weight, but it's still very light and acidic and refreshing. So that one, okay, so I'm thinking my first CD was Shania Twain. So I'm thinking, man, I feel like a woman. I'm drinking that.
Okay, your Syrah, which was really beautiful with a piece of pork. It was a wonderful pairing. So I'm curious what music it pairs with.
So I think the Syrah, it has this kind of, it's not your heavy Syrah. There's more of a feminine style to it. And it was, for 18, it was all neutral oak. We did not use any new oak, and it was just to express that fruit. That is a great. Maybe some Fleetwood Mac or something with that.
Nice. You're doing so well, and I'm so curious now with the other wines. Your Moon Mountain Cabernet.
Oh, Moon Mountain Cabernet. That would just be classic rock. Yeah.
And then your favorite 2013 Voir dire Cabernet from Theorem.
Oh. That might be like Pavarotti or something. That has what I love about 13 is it took the tannins and the acid, it took years for that wine to reach the point when it was singing. 2014, 2015, and 2016 reached that like point before 13 did. And so we ended up not pouring 13 for such a long time and just letting it age in the bottle. And it just kind of came together, acidity and tannin and everything, because it was a lot of acid, a lot of tannin. And it just took a while for that to just come together and start singing. And it went through its moments where you're like, wow, this is acidic or this is tannic and it's not joint. It is in such a sweet spot.
So Pavarotti. So you're a big Riesling fan and you're making beautiful Cabernets. If there was one region in the wine world, well, I should say there are a lot of regions I'm sure you want to go, but what wine region is at the very top of your list to explore?
I would have to go with Italy because that's one of the regions where I don't know enough. And I'm so fascinated, and I can try wines, but I feel like going there and having the culinary experience and the wine experience, that is, I've got to go to Italy.
Italy. All over. Not just one region, the entire country. Well, I think you should start planning because there's a lot to visit. There are so many wonderful regions to explore. But for our listeners, one great region to explore is the famous Napa Valley. And, to be up here on Diamond Mountain Fruit, it's a really special experience and kind of takes you off the valley floor. So if people want to visit Theorem, how do they do that? How can they find you guys? And what kind of opportunities can they do in a tasting here?
I think the best thing to do is, follow us on social media. So that way, Instagram, you get a great sense of where you're coming. Also, emailing us or calling us to book an appointment. It's info@theoremvineyards.com and easy. And we can kind of set you up with an appointment and come and taste with us. We are a very small team, so it's, and we want you to feel like you have the entire estate to yourself. So we don't want to book on tasting after tasting after tasting. So we do book out a little bit in advance, but plan your trip, come out and visit us and experience a sip of Theorem of all our wines.
Well, that's great. It is important to book an appointment, but they are open 7 days a week, and it's a wonderful experience. You can taste the wines, and if you ask, you might be able to do a food pairing. There are a few of those available, very few, but it is worth it. It is worth the money to do that, the investment. It's a lovely way to spend an afternoon. And Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you had fun on Wine Soundtrack.
I did. Thank you so much, Allison. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.